Domain 1, Agile Principles and Mindset. It consists of 16% questions in the exam. It will explore, embrace, and apply Agile principles and mindset. Let's get started. What is Scrum? Scrum is a framework within which people can address complex adaptive problems, while productivity and creatively delivering products of the highest possible value. Scrum uses time box interactions called sprints to create prioritize requirements for the customers. Sprints last from 2 to 4 weeks. Utilizing Scrum allows us to review, adopt and improve on an interactive level while producing value incrementally and optimizing predictability. Scrum is easy to explain and difficult to implement, but the more organizations begin to embrace or improve upon Agile best practices, the better they will be. Scrum is based on 3 core principles of Agile software project management: transparency, inspection and adaptation. Number 1. Transparency. Transparency begins with a clear understanding among all stakeholders of what the definition of done is, what everyone on the project is doing. Number 2. Inspection. Scrum utilizes intermittent inspection of the work to ensure quality. The inspection of the work catches defects before they are released into production, called escaped defects. Number 3. Adaptation. Scrum is agile, meaning it's flexible, adaptive and allows tailoring of process before used in the project. Next topic is Scrum values. There are total 5 values of Scrum. Those values are commitment, courage, focus, openness and respect. That is why Scrum is easy to understand, but very difficult to put into practice. The entire Scrum team must be committed to the goals, and to the process. First value of Scrum is commitment. The group needs to commit to achieving goals of each sprint. Meeting commitment is an important aspect of Scrum. Second value is focus. Focus on completing the goals of the sprint and goals of the team. The beauty of the Scrum framework is the team's ability to choose what they can commit to. It will lead to focus exclusively on the work that needs to be done, and to know with some degree of certainty that they will be able to accomplish it. Third value of Scrum is openness. Be open and transparent of our challenges of the project work. Openness also applies to the team dynamic, openness in communication, challenging the status quo, and updating the project status daily. Fourth one is respect. Respect each other as capable independent people. Respect is expected, given and received on a regular basis. If there is a problem, everyone is open and consensus is reached to solve it. Fifth value is courage. Do the right thing and work through tough problems. You must be courageous to speak up when you have challenges or make mistakes and to push the status quo. Next topic is steps in the Scrum project. First step, start with product owners. Product owners' main job is to maximize the value of the product, and the value of the work of development team. Product owner create a priorities list of everything the project might deliver. This list is called the product backlog. Product owner's sole responsibility is to manage the product backlog. So the product backlog contains all the possible items that could go into the sprint or increment requested by the customer to be delivered on the priority basis. Next is team and product owner meet in sprint planning, and the team decides how much work it can take on in the next sprint. The team pulls requirements from the prioritized product backlog that it can achieve in the sprint. Third step is the team decides who will do what, and creates the item in the sprint backlog for the current sprint. The team will meet each day for 15 minutes, called the daily Scrum, to share progress updates. Then the project manager, also called the Scrum Master, helps keep the team working towards the sprint goal. Fifth step is, a sprint review happens at the end of each sprint, to demonstrate the product owner what the team has accomplished. Then in the next step, after the sprint review, The team participates in a sprint retrospective to discuss what did or did not work in the last sprint. This gives us Scrum Master and the team an opportunity to adjust the processes, and work for the next sprint. Last step is that the whole process repeats itself by the project team, selecting the next chunk of prioritize requirements from the backlog, and getting to work in the next sprint. Next topic. Scrum Roles and Responsibilities. There are specific roles on the Scrum team, and each of these roles has its own focus and responsibilities. Scrum teams are self-organizing and cross-functional. Primarily Scrum teams are made up of 3 roles: Product Owner, the Development Team and the Scrum Master. Product Owner manage the product backlog. Product Owner arranges product requirements, from most valuable to least valuable. The ordering and content of the product backlog can change for each sprint, but what's in the backlog and the ordering of the items is transparent to the whole team. The management of product backlog is called grooming or refining. Product Owner is accountable for the product backlog. They are also accountable for making sure that the development teams understands the item in the backlog to whatever level is necessary to accomplish the work. This means that the Product Owner is constantly in contact with the customer, stakeholders, the development team and the Scrum Master. Development team is responsible for sizing the requirements of the product backlog, and getting work done in each sprint. The development team is self-organizing and self-led, and its members are called generalizing specialist because they can often do more than one function in the team. An ideal Scrum has no less than 5 people and no more than 11 people. A Scrum development team is self-organizing and cross-functional. All of them have the job title as developer, regardless of work being done. Scrum Master is also known as servant leader. The Scrum Master ensure that everyone understand the rule of Scrum, remove impediments for the team, facilitate Scrum meetings, helps the Product Owner groom the product backlog, and communicate the vision of the project to everyone's involved. Generally Scrum Master is the Agile Project Manager. The goal of Scrum Master is to maximize value in all interactions with the Product Owner, development team and the entire organization. Their role in the organization is to make sure that Scrum is effectively implemented from the top down and from the bottom up. Next topic is Scrum Artifacts. There are 3 distinct artifacts utilized in Scrum methodology: the product backlog, the sprint backlog and the increment. First is product backlog. The product backlog is a list of all features, functions, requirements, enhancements and fixes. The backlog is dynamic, and it is constantly changing, as value is recognized and new decisions are made by the product owner. It encompasses descriptions, the order in which work will be accomplished, and the items that are of most value to produce in the moment. The backlog will evolve as the product evolves. It is important to refine the product backlog constantly, in a process called grooming. Grooming the product backlog is an ongoing process where items are reviewed and revised to add detailed estimates. Even though the product owner is solely responsible for the product backlog, it is important to work together as a Scrum team, to decide how and when this will occur, in order to make sure that this does not consume too much time or capacity of the development. The process of reviewing and revising items in the backlog happens on the regular basis. The product owner collects the requirements, and based on the conversation with them customer determine what is most valuable to the customer today. The product owner gathers information about what the customers like, about their current software, what they would like to change or add and what would be removed completely. The product owner would then work with the development team on backlog grooming, to push to the front the items needed to produce the increment that is usable. Second Scrum artifact is sprint backlog. A sprint backlog is just an itemized version of the overarching product backlog, but it is based on the backlog items that have been selected to accomplish right now. Sprint backlog provides visibility into all of the work that development team identifies as necessary to meet the sprint goal. Third Scrum artifact is increment. The team sprint is unique to the methodology of Scrum, but could be considered interchangeable with the term iteration. An iteration is a time-boxed grouping of activity designed to produce a reliable product increments. Next topic is Scrum Ceremonies. We will discuss the main Scrum events. First is Sprint. The sprint is time-boxed into 1 month or less, in order to have consistent duration in place for development efforts. The result will be usable and potentially releasable product increment. That does not mean that the project is totally over and complete. In fact, a new sprint starts immediately after the previous sprint is over until such a time when it is determined that the project is done or that the product has been deployed. It would be up to the Scrum Master and the rest of the team to make sure no changes are made in the middle of the sprint that could endanger the goal or negate the production of quality increments. Second is Backlog Refinement Meeting. This event is where the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the development team work together to discuss the backlog items and prioritize the items. Third one is Sprint Planning Meeting. The team determines how much work they can take on from the prioritized backlog for the next sprint. This determination is based on estimates of the items in the product backlog and past sprints. The selected items from the product backlog become the sprint backlog and the goal of the sprint. Fourth, Scrum Ceremony is Daily Scrum. This is a 15 minutes meeting, sometimes called a stand-up meeting. It answers 3 specific questions. What have I accomplished since the last daily Scrum? What will I accomplish before the next daily Scrum? Are there any impediments blocking my work? Next Scrum Ceremony is Scrum of Scrums meeting. In a big Scrum project, there might be multiple teams working together. Rather than having a huge daily Scrum, the team meets separately and then a representative from each team meet in Scrum of Scrum to report on each team progress. The team representative answer the same 3 questions, but for the team rather than as individual. In addition, a 4th question is often addressed: will our team be putting something in other teams' way? Next is Sprint Review. At the end of each sprint, the development team demonstrates the work they have accomplished in the past sprint. This review is an opportunity for the development team, not the Scrum Master, to show the result of what they have created. It's also an opportunity for the product owner to offer feedback on whether the work has reached the done stage. This informal meeting is utilized to inspect the increment and adopt the product backlog as needed. The major goal of Sprint Review is to present the increment to the customer, in order to gain their feedback and to encourage collaboration. While much of the Sprint Review looks at the things that have been done, it is also looking forward to determining the next things that could be done to optimize value. Another important ceremony is Sprint Retrospective. After the Sprint Review and before the next Sprint Planning meeting, the development team meets to discuss 3 items: people, product and process. The team discusses what's worked well with each item in the project, what needs improvement, and the feedback from the product owner from the Sprint Review meeting. Sprint Retrospective is an important piece of continuous improvement in the Scrum framework. It can be treated as lesson learned meeting or a post-mortem. By the end of this Sprint Retrospective, the Scrum team will have identified improvements that it will implement in the next sprint. Next ceremony is cancelling a sprint. Sprint can be cancelled by product owner's authority. Anything that's been completed to date is reviewed, and if any part of the work is potentially releasable, the product owner will typically accept it. Last one is definition of done. One key aspect of all sprint planning and sprint goal is to understand completely what the definition of done is. Each member of the team need to have a shared understanding of what it means for the actual work to be complete. This provides transparency and guards against misinterpretations and misunderstandings. If the team truly understand what the definition of done is for each individual sprint, then it is far easier for them to determine how many product backlog items they can accomplish to produce a completed increment. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.